everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and the time has come to relieve the CTX 700 ND from our fleet. That's right, just under a year of ownership, and this bike is moving on to its next owner. We've had a lot of fun with it, but ultimately Alyssa did not end up riding it as much as she thought she was going to, but that's been totally fine because we've been able to make some great content. Got the video on the automatic transmission, a little bit of an ownership introduction, and now we'll do a little bit of an ownership wrap. Not only that, but we got a little winding road drive as well. I think it was our first motorcycle video on winding road. So let's take it out for one little drive. I'm actually heading up right now to go deliver it to its new owner. He's buying it with the tail bag that I actually originally bought for my Ninja. It's a universal bag, but he's going to take that, and we're excited to get it to him. So for a quick reminder, this is an automatic dual clutch transmission motorcycle. So it's got 6 speeds that'll shift by itself. It's a 700cc parallel twin, making a modest about 45 horsepower, but more importantly, about 45 pound-feet of torque. It's an excellent little beginner bike. Everyone who's ever hopped on it, gone for a little ride, has had a bunch of fun, and very easy to acclimate to it. What is that, bug guts? That'll be fine. It's going to get a little dirty on the way anyway. Oh, one last time, let's fire it up. Up on. And away we go. It's such a relaxing riding experience. I'm actually pretty happy because the gentleman who's purchasing this bike is buying it for his first motorcycle. He's had a moped before, he's ridden four-wheelers, a few other kind of off-roady sort of things like that, but this is going to be his first big street bike, and I think it's great for that. I really do. I think there's something to be said, even if you're not going to own a motorcycle for a very long time, even if it's only a year, 6 months, one summer, something like that, it's better to learn in progression and sort of get a smaller bike, get a more comfortable bike, a less intimidating bike to learn with, and then get yourself something you care about a little bit more. I mean, this bike is not very expensive. You can pick them up on the used market for less than $5,000 all day, even with ABS and the automatic transmission. And then when you're ready, move yourself into something like a 650 or a 700 or a 900 or something like that. But there's nothing wrong with this bike for just city cruising as well. I mean, it's so effortless with its power. The maintenance is so minimal. We've owned it for a year, put on 3,000 miles, and we've had one oil change, and that's it. This thing's got 8,000 mile oil change intervals. I mean, that's just crazy. What that really translates into is you can just get on this thing and ride, and that is huge for me with motorcycles. That's why I ended up getting the V-Strom as well. I wanted a bike that I wasn't going to have to screw with. I wanted to go for a ride because I have some time or something, and I get there and I find out, oh, it's broken, or it's not starting, or it needs this maintenance all the time. It's like, no, the CTX is just ready to go. We've only had one hiccup with this bike the whole time we've owned it, and that was it was idling high for some reason, and that was preventing it from shifting into drive. It needs to come down and idle below about 1400 RPM in order for you to shift from neutral to drive, and for some reason it was just idling really high. It didn't want to, regardless of how many times you shut it off, started it back up, it was idling high. It required revving it up a few times, all the way up by redline and neutral, for the revs to settle back down and idle low enough so that I could get it into gear. My hypothesis is that it had been started and stopped a few times throughout that morning without running for very long, so perhaps the battery had drained down a little bit and the bike was trying to charge up the battery by idling a little bit higher. That's my only guess. But other than that, this thing has been super nice. It really has. I actually prefer this bike to run around and do city errands over the V-Strom. It's just, with the automatic transmission, the relaxed seating position, it's so chill to just go and ride around. I mean, look how easily this thing cruises. No hands, very straight, kind of wiggle it around, very stable. It's a bit heavy for this size of bike. What I mean is about 500 pounds for only about 40-some horsepower. It's a little on the heavier side, but because it carries its weight so low, it's very balanced and relaxed. You can just kind of float it around. You really can have a lot of fun. Hopefully we get a chance to open it up a little bit here in a sec. Oh shoot. Had to call Alyssa real quick and have her grab a screwdriver for getting the license plate off. You don't know how many times I've went to buy or sell vehicles and forget something to take the license plate off with. Yeah, this thing sure does pull. And that's the thing. That's why torque is often more important than peak horsepower. These type of things is... Oh, but I'm not him. With torque, you can pull away from the line like that and from stoplights and up to the speed limit very briskly. It's fun. You still have control over it, obviously. It's not going to yank your eyeballs out, but it's fun. It's exciting. Yeah! It's often said that riding a slow bike fast is more fun than riding a fast bike slow. And they say that with cars, they say with motorcycles, and I think it reigns true with both. Unless you're taking things to the track, unless you live out in the mountains or some rural area, then when are you really going to use all of that 200 horsepower in your Yamaha R1? You're going to maybe crank on it from first and second, and your traction control is going to kick in and not give you full power anyway. And then you're going to get to the speed limit, you're probably going to speed for a little bit, you're going to have to watch out for either getting pulled over or crashing. And then what? And then you're cruising using 10 horsepower to maintain 55 miles per hour, and you paid for all that power and you don't get to use it. So I definitely think there's something to be said for actually using the machine that you paid for and using all of it. That's why I like riding this bike's replacement, the Grom, around, because you are constantly giving that thing full throttle. You're rowing through all the gears, and it's satisfying in that way. I mean, there's highway speeds right there. Plenty fast enough. So do I have any complaints with the CTX 700D? No, I really don't. The closest thing to an outright complaint I would have is the forward peg foot position, but that's kind of, again, just characteristic of this bike. Most of the reasons that I'm not a huge fan of it are just that. They're characteristics of this bike that I'm not exactly looking for in my daily motorcycle. I grow weary of these long foot peg positions after about an hour or so, having my feet up there. Maybe if my legs were a little bit longer, I'd like it better. I don't know. There is a decent amount of wind buffeting, and that seems to happen both with this aftermarket windshield and without it. It's not exactly a naked bike, so there's some sort of wind going around, and yeah, I don't know. It's just it's not particularly quiet. And ultimately, somebody like me, a bit of a speed demon, I'm looking for more power. It's plenty fine for putzing around town and stuff, but if I'm going to have something like a motorcycle that's inherently made to be fun, to be exciting, to be a thrill ride sort of machine, then I want something with more power. The V-Strom 650 is about the bottom of what I would want to live with for daily sort of power. Which is funny because I just bought a Grom, but that's a totally different style bike. I mean, that thing can't even do 65 miles per hour, so I have a whole different set of expectations for it. But I wouldn't want the Grom to be my only bike either. So for me, you got to get at least up into the 650 class for livability for my only bike. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. I totally understand how a lot of people would be 100% satisfied with the power from this bike, especially if you don't do a lot of back road riding like this, if you primarily just stay in town, or even if you do and you're fine just kind of propelling yourself up to the speed limit and then cruising along like this, it's great. I mean, this thing's chattering along, 3,000 RPM at 60, it gets well over 60 miles per gallon, regular fuel, it's so cheap to run and maintain. I could totally see this being a great daily bike for a lot of types of riders. A lot of more calm types of riders. And that's not to say you can't hustle it. Oh, that was a turtle! That's awesome! It's not to say that you can't hustle it, it's just, it feels more like chilling. And there's nothing wrong with that. Is always a tough corner because it's decreasing radius, but it is on camber, so Actually, it's increasing radius from here. It's decreasing radius that way. You got to be really careful. There's automatic downshifts. This bike's really good at holding gear when it knows you're riding spiritedly. So this bike has been a very cool bike to own. It's opened my eyes up to dual clutch automatic motorcycles. I really wish more manufacturers would get on that train. I think for littler bikes, manuals are no problem, but I could certainly see myself getting an automatic with a Goldwing or an Africa Twin, or definitely the NC750X. I'd love to ride one of those sometime. Just makes for such a different and enjoyable motorcycling experience. So I hope the next owner of this CTX enjoys it as much as we have. It's been a great bike to us. Sorry that Alyssa never really got to ride it, but I don't think anyone should be pushed into motorcycling. I think if it's something you want to do, it's certainly attainable. You can take the steps to do it safely and have fun and do a good job doing it. But no one should be coerced, no one should be pushed to do it before they're willing and ready and able to make that plunge, because if you do, you're not going to have as good of a time. So thank you all so much for watching. We'll have fleet updates on the replacement to this bike, as well as the V-Strom coming up here real soon, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.